Okay, so today we're going to be reviewing some of the distributive property things that we know, and then we're going to go a little bit further. So if you remember the distributive property, and what we'll do actually, if you want to title your note like distributive property part 2, that's basically what we're doing today. And so if you recall, the distributive property was when we used it when we had something like this. Instead of thinking about x plus 2 plus x plus 2 plus x plus 2 and combining all the like terms, we actually just use the distributive property and multiply 3 times x, which would be 3x, and then 3 times 2, which would be 6. And so we found that that could be very useful. We practiced using it. But what happens, what if you have something like 3x times x plus 2? So not much has changed here, except that we have this extra x. And so how do we deal with that? So let's just take a look and see. So if we were doing something like this, we'd do the same type of thing. We're going to multiply 3x times x. Now that's the problem. 3x times x. What does that equal? Well, if you remember, x times x, like if you had a square that was x by x, the area of that, x times x, would be x squared. So x times x is x squared. That's like a property that we know. And it is because of this area model that if you had an x by x square, the area would be x squared. And any number by itself is that number squared. 5 times 5 is 5 squared, etc. So 3x times x is just 3x squared. That's how it can be written. So let's put that here. So 3x times x is 3x squared. And then 3x times 2, well, multiplication is in any order. So this is the same as 3 times x times 2. So this is the same thing as 3 times 2 times x, which is 6x. So we have plus 6x here. Okay, so the big thing to remember, not much is changing, but the thing that you need to remember, and you might want to write this in your notes, is that x times x equals x squared. So let's just do an example of this. So say example 1. So if I gave you something like 2x times 4x plus 1 minus x squared plus 3. Okay, so let's just solve this together. You might want to pause the video here and try it by yourself first. That would be best, and then you can come check. Okay, so we want to simplify this. I should have put that in the instructions. The goal is to simplify. So first we're going to do 2x times 4x. And if you need to, you can always do work on the side. 2x times 4x. That's the same thing as 2 times x times 4 times x. So I can just multiply the numbers, which is 8, and then x times x is x squared. So I have 8x squared. And then 2x times 1 is just 2x. Now here I actually don't have any number in front, but I do have a negative sign, which makes everything inside opposite. So I'm going to have minus x squared and then minus 3. So now we just combine the like terms. 8x squared minus x squared is 7x squared. And I don't have anything to go with the 2x, and I don't have anything to go with the 3. So there we go. Now something that you're going to see in the practice, so we're going to put it as example 2, is looking at this in the context of like a figure that you have to find the area. So we've done lots of finding perimeter. So for example, so I'm going to say find area and perimeter of this figure. And so here is, we're just going to do a rectangle, and we'll say that this side is 2x plus 1, and this side is x. Okay, so if we were finding perimeter, let's do that first because we've done problems like this. So perimeter, remember, is the outside. So what we would do is like 2 lengths of 2x plus 1 plus 2 lengths of x. And so then we can simplify that using distributive property. 2 times 2x is 4x, 2 times 1 is 2, and then plus 2x. So we have 6x plus 2 as our final for perimeter. So you did some practice with that. But let's see what happens when we're doing area. So area, we know for area of a rectangle is base times height or length times width. And so we're going to be doing, it doesn't really matter which you assign to length and which you assign to width, but we're going to be doing x times 2x plus 1. And so we can see here that it's a distributive property question, and we're going to end up with an x squared again, because x times 2x is 2x squared, and then x times 1 is x. So this would be the area. And it makes sense that the area ends up with an x squared in it, because when you're doing area with numbers, you would talk about your units being in like whatever your unit is squared, whereas your perimeter is just in that unit. Okay, so you're going to do some practice now, and make sure you check your answers at the bottom, but show all of your work, because that's what I'm interested in when I look at it on D2L.